Welcome everyone to the Everything EOS Livestream. My name is Steph. Happy to be your host for today. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are in the world. Leave a comment. Let me know where you're from. Let me know where you're watching, whether you're watching live or if you're watching on the replay. Make sure to leave a little something in the comments for the YouTube algorithm. All right, so before we get started today, I want to welcome everyone in the chat. I see we've got Myra, we've got Kadek, Michael, Max Cho, always out there, Nathan James in the chat. Also, of course, later on we'll be on the show. Yana Schiffer, what's up? Nestor, MCC, Charles, here we go. Lots of familiar names. It's good to be back with the EOS community for yet another Everything EOS livestream. All right, so we got lots of things going on today. Lots of EOS up for grabs as well. If you're listening live, you'll have a chance to earn a little 10 USDT Pomelo bounty. So make sure to keep your eyes peeled for how to do that. And also later on in the show, 1000 EOS Developer Challenge. Actually, maybe even more than that up for grabs. We'll be hearing from Nathan James about that. Also, the show will start off, of course, as always, with the EOS Ecosystem Spotlight. I'll be highlighting some updates from SOVDEX, Now Payments, EZswap Job Board, and Pomelo Bounties. Then we'll be heading over to a Fireside chat with the EOS Network Foundation Chief Technology Officer, Bart, Wyatt. I'm sure we'll learn a lot in that conversation. And then we'll head on over to Nathan James for some EOS Developer news, a new Developer Challenge, and then closing off the show with Yves and Zach for a classic big beard banter. All right, so if you're ready to get into all these exciting topics, first, actually, why don't you leave a like on the show, subscribe to the channel, make sure everything's all set, make sure we give some love to that YouTube algorithm, and make sure we spread the good EOS news as wide as possible. All right, let's get into our ecosystem news. So as a reminder, these updates are sent in from the community, from you guys. So if you want us to talk about your product, your updates, whatever it is, send us an update and I'll read it out on air and hopefully get some extra eyeballs on whatever project it is you're building. First up today, we're starting with SOV. So the SOVDEX V2 is launching soon. The longest running SwapDEX on EOS is about to get a tremendous overhaul. New features coming for SOVDEX V2 include permissionless token pair listing, open liquidity, tokenized LP positions, variable ratios. When opening a new trading pair, you can set it to be 1-to-1, 1-to-3, 1-to-5, etc. in order to limit or increase the exposure to assets as you desire. Open reward pools, SVX liquidity voting, and early access to SOVDEX V2 is coming soon on testnet frontend for nodes only, opening the platform to all later on. So head on over to SOVEOS.1 to learn more. All right, next up we've got No-KYC Fiat-to-EOS swaps available. So it is now possible to let customers pay with fiat and businesses will accept EOS via Now Payments. Very cool. It's also possible to buy EOS without KYC on Change Now for up to 700 euro. So go to the links in the chat to learn more. And if one of you wants to try out the service right now, let me know how it works in a couple minutes. I would love to hear how the experience is. All right, next up, we've got some updates from EZswap protocol. It's listed on Gate and Bitget as the EOS EVM gaming infrastructure, and would like to provide more benefits towards token takers such as whitelist and partner game benefits. EZswap is setting a new standard for gaming asset transactions and inscription technologies. By leveraging the automated market maker mechanism, EZswap provides a seamless and efficient trading environment that directly integrates with games. This not only revolutionizes how gaming assets are traded and utilized, but also opens up new avenues for gamers and developers alike. enhancing the entire gaming experience. So head over to EZswap.io to learn more. And why don't you follow them on Twitter as well, at EZswap Protocol on Twitter. All right, next up, we've got a update from Job Board as they launch their new Web3 version. So a new Web3 job board is in development, funded by Upscale. Users will be able to easily register utilizing an existing Gmail account. The platform provides the ability to submit a request for proposal / job request, apply for a job, providing details of your suitability. It also handles the smart contract agreement between work provider and job worker. Work payments made through the job board can be made in any crypto released upon milestone completion. Access is provided to dispute and reputation systems, as well as a built-in DAO proposal voting system. So head on over to YouTube and to job-board.io to learn more. Okay, finally today, Pomelo Bounties announcing an instant bounty that can be claimed by anyone right now. So we've got a X Space event coming up tomorrow. I'll be hosting that event on Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern, with Andrew, the Pomelo Bounties product owner. And we'll be talking about Pomelo Bounties' recent launch, the new features on the platform, what you can do, as well as showcasing the easy to use features of Bounties. For example, we've got a new bounty here that says promote the Everything EOS Livestream on X. So right now, you can go make your account, join Pomelo Bounties, promote this show on X, submit your work, and earn 10 USDT. Good luck, have fun. If you miss out on this promo, join us tomorrow on the X Space event. We'll be running a lot more of these promos and even some bigger bounties as well. All right, so thank you very much for all the projects, for submitting your updates, and we look forward to hearing more updates next month. All right, so if you like those updates, again, I remind you to leave a like on the video. And at this point, I'm gonna throw it over to Nathan James for our EOS Development News section.
Hello. As always, good morning, afternoon, or night, wherever you are. If you're a dev, doesn't really matter anyway. As always, if you're building things on Antelope and you're not in the Antelope developers chat, you're missing out. So join us at t.me/Antelope devs. We have mostly good conversations. We do have a developer roundtable that happens every 2 weeks, which always has excellent conversations. Without further ado, let's get on with the developer news. So Leap 5.0.2 was released. This version has a patch for long-standing but recently discovered bug related to deserialization of blocks for nodes. This was primarily surrounding return values, so if you haven't been using them, probably didn't impact you, but it has been impacting the nodes. It is good to see it fixed. The system contracts, also including updates to RAM, were released as 3.3.0 and have been deployed to the mainnet. This includes new actions like RAM transfer, burn, buy RAM self, and the logging actions. We talked about this last time. They were deployed to the Jungle testnet. Big shout out to Denise from EOS Nation, who did a majority of the work there. Excellent work. If you want to test the new actions on the mainnet, you can use the ramutils app at ramutils, ramutils.netlify.app. This also came alongside some, or I guess tangentially, the WRAM contract was deployed to Jungle. This wraps RAM, so the native asset of RAM, so that you can add it to decentralized and centralized exchanges easily, because exchanges don't really support the native RAM asset. This is true of all ecosystems. You have wrapped ETH, wrapped Bitcoin, et cetera, and this allows decentralized and centralized exchanges to support the type of tokens that they normally couldn't support just because they're lacking functionality or they have a different format, different standard. So we're now moving towards that with the RAM native asset with this wrapped RAM token contract. The one special thing about this WRAM contract is that it also reflects the true RAM market with the amount of tokens minted. So the total amount of RAM that is available is also the total amount of issued WRAM within the contract. And even if someday the spigot gets turned back on or turned off or reduced, supply gets reduced of RAM, it'll automatically correct itself every time somebody interacts with the contract. So again, excellent work that's being done by Denis from EOS Nation. For the EVM, we have a new token added to the bridge. This is the Pink token. I do understand that there's going to be an extra token related to Pink that's coming in the future, but we'll talk about that next time. For tooling, the team over at Boyd has been working on a cross-chain Antelope bridge that now supports atomic assets bridging between EOS, Wax, and Telos. This means that you can now bridge your Wax NFTs over to EOS easily, as well as vice versa. You can do any kind of combination between those networks. As far as I know, this is the first instance of someone using Antelope IBC to do cross-chain NFT bridging, so definitely awesome to see. If you want to mess around with it, you can visit it at antelopex.io. That's ANTELOPEX.io. There's also support on the interface for regular token transfers as well, but that's not necessarily something new. It does have some cool stuff like status and retry support though. So very, very nice to see that. There is also BRAM from DeFi Box, which now supports transfer using the new RAM transfer functionality. BRAM is kind of like WRAM, though it has a little bit of a different implementation. There are no more fees associated with transferring RAM to DeFi Box to get RAM. It was a little unclear from what I read, but I also assume this means there's no fees for unwrapping the RAM back into native RAM, but I guess I need some clarification on that. Droplets from Greymass also has some updates that are in the works using RAM for the new transfer action as well. I don't think it's currently supported, might have changed between the time that I got this info and now, so it's possible. This will allow you to stop incurring the 5% or the 0.5% fee in each direction when entering and exiting droplets, which would be very nice because a lot of people are holding a lot of droplets. And there's also apparently a new off-chain indexer which is coming out, and we'll revisit that stuff when I have more information available as well. For now, I think they're highly focused on the Shipload project, which looks pretty awesome. And that will also take advantage of droplets as a distribution mechanism, if not possibly more integrated into the game. It is really cool to see a company dogfooding their own creation, so I'm all for it. There is SaveAct. So SaveAct is an application for storing files using Antelope blockchains, and they released a new documentation aimed directly at developers. It digs into how you can upload and download files, what the naming schemas are, various type of browser requests. It's a little bit similar to some of the other, I guess I wouldn't say it's very similar, but it's a little similar. The concept is similar to, let's say, IPFS and other kind of technologies, Arweave and whatnot, but they do go about it in a very different way. In a somewhat related effort, I did an experiment recently with a newish read-only actions where you could visit a URL and pull data directly from any contract. The data would be MIME typed and supports HTML or any other type of file, meaning you can access them directly from a browser without an extension or resolver. The great thing about read-only actions is that you don't incur any kind of costs when calling them, so it's very similar to view functions in Solidity. You don't pay for them as the consumer of them. You only pay one time to insert the data into the blockchain. Sadly, the code was written about a week before WharfKit released support for sending read-only actions, so it is using the old ESJS. Denis, again, actually added support for WharfKit post that, but we never linked it all up. That repository is now open source, so anybody can raise that up as they see fit, and you can also just see the code to see how it works. But the basic gist of it is that you can hit a URL. It kind of works like a backend CRUD API with only gets, and you can just get a contract action from any contract plus action on the EOS blockchain without having to mess around with WharfKit or ESJS or any of that kind of stuff. It's purely just post parameters and whatnot. So definitely worth checking out. Today, EOS at EOS Network /vert was released into NPM. This is version 1.0.0 of the virtual machine emulator for Antelope blockchains. We kind of pulled this into our own repository, cleaned it up a bit, modernized some of the packaging, cleaned out all of the dependencies and all that weren't being used, made sure that they were safe and secure, and then reposted that up onto NPM. This also included some additions to our documentation, docs.eosnetwork.com, which had some minor changes for structure, but also primarily started talking about the fuck yeah framework, as well as the ability to use verts within CDT. Currently, the latest release of CDT doesn't yet support this. It's already, the ability to support this is merged into the main branch, but it hasn't been put into a release because there's some Leap 6.0 stuff there that would break. So that is coming. However, there is in the documentation a wonderful code snippet, or I guess I should say command line snippet from Matt Witherspoon, which allows you to export memory from any CDT version, or I should say a contract built with any CDT version, which will allow you to use vert on all of your contracts. That's all the news that we have today, though. I'm going to throw it over to Bart and Brandon on the Fireside. They're going to talk about Leap 6, dynamic gas fees, and the evolution of EOS.
What's up, everybody? We're back. I'm Lovejoy here with another Fireside chat, and today I'm joined by none other than Bart Wyatt, CTO of the EOS Network Foundation, and it's a pleasure to have you here today, Bart. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to be here.
So just to provide a little bit of context, you did kind of begin in the early days of EOS, and you've been basically deep in this code base from the inception. Could you take us through, I guess, in the last few years since the ENF engineers have been like deep in it, trying to get everything sorted out? Like, can you take us through sort of what the evolution has been during that time?
Sure, yeah. I was here at the start. That was a long time ago. And I did take a little bit of a break before I came back to work with the ENF. But since I've been back at the ENF, we've kind of taken EOS from a chain that was on life support, I would say. It was almost dead. There wasn't any maintenance going on. And we put it back on its feet. That was the first thing that we did. Yeah. And that was about the time that I really arrived and started making waves myself. We had already gotten the dev team established. We had taken over the repo. We had started to close out bugs and tickets that have been there for a long time. And just, basic signs of life that would ensure the community that the dev team is here and actually working. Once we kind of got that settled, though, we shifted in maybe the past 14, 15 months into producing new features. And I think if you go back in time and start, kind of replaying that, you'll find that we put quite a bit out there. We started with some basic performance enhancements, but shortly thereafter, we started releasing things like the EVM, which is the first time that, we had any kind of secondary way of making a smart contract on EOS, and it also brought with it an entirely different UI and UX paradigm. Now you can access most of what it is to be an EOS user through MetaMask or through any kind of other EVM wallet. So it's a big step towards accessibility by the broader blockchain industry. We had heard concerns a lot about the usability of EOS and how difficult it can be with our kind of unique accounting structure. And now we have something that is very much in line with what the industry has kind of settled on in terms of an account structure, if you so choose to use that. I still think we have some work to do on the native side, but at least in the meantime, we can no longer be looked at as any less than any of the other chains. Like, we've got that one covered up. I think the EVM was well received. We also started immediately working on what is now Savannah. We used to call it Instant Finality. We called it a lot of things in its history. Savannah is what we're calling it now, and I think it's going to stick going forward. I really like the name. We started laying the groundwork for that with some primitives in 5.0, and now with Leap 6.0 just over the horizon, we're ready to launch it. And when we first launched, it was amazing that we had finality at all, and it was finality over a certain amount of time, and other chains that had finality couldn't match our finality speeds. Over time, we kind of fell back on the leaderboard there, and other chains caught up to us. And now with Savannah, we're going to take a step right back up to the front. right back to the Spotlight with, kind of, again, an industry-leading finality time of around 1 to 2 seconds. And I think people have become so accustomed to blockchains being slow or expensive that they don't really yet realize what will happen when the latency tightens up that much. If you were to compare it to other systems in the real world, when you run your credit card someplace, that takes more than our instant finality time in order to actually clear. And so certainly like a whole bunch of use cases come into view that wouldn't have been possible before. They're way out of range for something like Bitcoin, where you might have to wait an hour for something to really settle out to where you're sure it's concrete. They're even out of range for things like proof of stake Ethereum, where you're still waiting several minutes for the equivalent guarantee that this is done, this is settled, it's final, it's never happening again. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to take us and put us back where we should be. When we started, we were one of the most technologically advanced blockchains out there. We lost our way a little bit, and so we have been trying to get back to that top spot and really retake our identity as one of the more technically advanced blockchains ever since. And I think we're right on the cusp. With 6.0, we're going to make a pretty big push in that direction, and I think we'll be ready at that point.
All right. Well, you talked a little bit about Savannah and Leap 6. What's it been like as CTO trying to keep all this together, I guess, and what do you see after Leap 6 too? If you can see if there's an event horizon that you can see. Yeah.
The push for 6.0 has been very interesting. Upgrading consensus is a tricky business. Consensus models are hard. Every network that actually engages in this, it takes years, and it will take us about 2 years end to end, from research all the way through development and release. But the level of research we put into it, the level of rigor, and the new things that we've discovered, and I think the new things we will be able to add to the state of the art are truly amazing. We will have taken something and built on top of it to the point where it's our own unique Savannah algorithm. In addition to giving that to our blockchain, we're going to try to contribute that back to the broader research community, and that's kind of that's a kind of accomplishment, not only for our researchers. I don't want to take anything away from them. REG and the rest of them have done a really good job, but personally, as like a CTO, being able to contribute to multiple different verticals, at the same time, not only blockchain, but also the greater kind of consensus and thought leadership research community, it's a really good accomplishment for the team, for the network, for everything. So that's been a lot of fun. It has been scary at times, because anytime you engage in a multi-year development cycle with that many unknowns, because this is computer science, this is no longer software engineering. There was no way at the beginning we could guarantee this was going to work out. We just thought it could, and we were relatively certain that if we put enough effort and time into it, it would give way, and we would have an algorithm that was, provably safe and good for the network. Now I can look back and say I'm so glad we took the leap of faith. But during the process, it was pretty scary. But it's never easy at the beginning, and so it's a relief, but it's also interesting to look back and see the work that went in, the effort that went in. I'm very proud of the team.
Awesome. Yeah, you should be. I just kind of watching from the sidelines and catching a glimpse here and there of what's going on there. It's incredible. There's another thing coming up soon, which is EVM related with dynamic gas fees. Maybe you could explain a little bit about that and how that's going to put the EVM on slightly different footing than it is now. The
best way to frame it is this is an effort towards the sustainability of our EVM layer long term. We got all the benefits of having that different layer of writing smart contracts and the different UI of accessing them when we released the EVM. But the EVM as a system is built under kind of different assumptions than EOS provides, and so particularly with RAM being a independent resource from EOS, the token itself, and something that's consumable, so its price is necessarily going to track as that resource gets consumed. We were finding that the way expenses were tallied on the EVM wasn't matching us in a really great way. And so we had to make kind of a bad choice of whether we undercharged and therefore could lead to like an insolvent EVM for the usage of RAM, or we overcharged for the usage of just normal compute cycles compared to everything else. That was what we were given with the EVM. After we did some research about usability and worked with some devs, we finally understood that we could change some of the things that are enshrined in the yellow paper for the EVM in order to make it better fit how EOS is going to work. And by doing so, we haven't really changed much about the user experience, but we will have an EVM layer that now is far more sustainable into the future of EOS. So if we change out resource models in the future, all those things we might do to help the UI of the native EOS layer, the EVM will now be able to surf those changes a lot better. And so while it in itself is not going to be an amazing feature, I think what it is a step towards making sure that all the features we offer on the EVM are there for the long term. That we never end up in a situation where we have to make a bad choice between, do we continue to support the EVM or do we support EOS's core tokenomics? Now they can live together, for the rest of the lifetime of the chain, it'll just be one of the reasons why this system stays happy and moves forward for years to come.
It's a pleasure to have you, Bart. Always good to talk to you. We don't do it enough. We should have you on more. So come back again sometime.
Thanks. It was a pleasure to be here, and I will come back soon.
I'm Nathan James here with another EOS Developer Challenge. But first, the last challenge has been completed with 1,000 EOS going to Ross from EOSphere for creating an excellent Hyperion guide that has been added to the docs. If you want to see it, head over to docs.eosnetwork.com and then go to the node operations section under native. On to the next challenge. This time we have an ongoing initiative where you can claim rewards on demand. The challenge? Creating template projects for EOS. These are easily forkable projects that get new developers started in the ecosystem without much setup. For this challenge, each project should have both a front end and a smart contract. They should use the Fuck Yeah framework for EOS smart contracts and include tests. They should also use a modern front-end framework like React or SvelteKit. They should also use free UI kits like skeleton.dev, Tailwind UI, or Next UI. Be careful because badly designed projects will not be accepted. There should be real visible effort put behind these projects, and they must be MIT open sourced. Once you've completed a project, post about it in the Antelope developers chat and tag me. I'll take a look, and if the project is up to standards, it'll be forked over to our organization and rewards will be distributed instantly. Each project you complete is worth 1,000 EOS. Here are some examples of the types of projects that I'm looking for. An NFT minting website, decentralized Twitter, simple DAO voting, decentralized Fiverr, and a WordPress plugin for EOS. Good luck, and I'm looking forward to your submissions.
Very cool. Thank you, Nathan James, for all that great content. Very cool to see 1,000 EOS available many times if many templates get submitted. Very cool. So the devs, good luck with the new challenge. Before we bring on Yves and Zach for our big Beard Banter, just wanted to recap a couple of the topics that we recently heard that caught my attention. First of all, we got some updates from WRAM. More utility is always a good thing, especially on EOS. What I really like, obviously low fees, super fast transactions. So the more utility you can move these assets around, the easier it is to express your investment thesis. And I think that's very important. So obviously that's great news. I was obviously very interested in the Wax NFT port over to the EOS feature that's available on antelopex.io. I'm a big collector of Wax NFTs and EOS NFTs, so I've already been thinking maybe I can consolidate some accounts, maybe move over some of the more high value ones that I'm holding. And then of course we had the Fireside with Bart Wyatt. Always very interesting to listen to him talk. I was very excited to listen to him talking about reclaiming the top spot in blockchain performance with Savannah and the instant finale of 1 to 2 seconds. He's always very calm, composed, matter of fact, but I'm pretty hyped about these upgrades. And then also got me thinking about how the Antelope branding with the Savannah upgrade, all that kind of fits nicely together. And then, and then talking about the EOS, the EVM and native synchronicity in terms of resource management and upgrades was also very interesting. And good news for the future of both native and EVM users. All right, let's bring on Yves and Zach for the Big Beard Banter. Welcome, boys. Big introduction this week. How are you guys doing?
Very good. Oh, Yves, you're muted.
All right, there you go. So you missed all of that. Tons of alpha. You just missed it. Both of you with the little goatee. Steph, nice sweater. Good job, good job.
Thank
Bring
you.
it
Thank
from
you.
goatee time.
First goatee lifetime. I like it.
First lifetime.
First lifetime goatee, absolutely. Doesn't even connect yet, really, if you zoom in there. But
You just need to wait another 2 years, it'll connect.
yeah, exactly. Maybe when I'm 45. All right, enough of me. I'll leave you guys to it, and I'll be back to wrap up the show whenever you guys are done in 10, 30, 7 hours. Who knows?
All right. Maybe seconds today. Oh, and actually, oh no, there you go. You were frozen, but now you're back.
I know. I was frozen on my own screen. Yeah, so everyone's gonna want to hear updates on BTCL2 now. Everyone, I guess we can call it XSAT now. The name is public. The first tweet on the Twitter account was made this morning or a few hours ago. So follow it on Twitter. It's EXSAT Network on X. And as the Hello World tweet, the logo and branding was presented. Because the logo and branding needed to come out first, and EOS Labs has been driving all of this, so credit to EOS Labs on this. It's not ENF doing this. Now that the branding's done, the website is in like full gear to kind of go through its final steps. So that should be launching next week-ish. It will be launching next week. But follow the Twitter because there's going to be some extra information that's going to be trickling out on the Twitter account. And then everyone's been wanting the white paper, more information on what the functionality is of the BTCL2. All of that will be coming out within the next week, week and a half. It'll be multiple things. And a big part of that is because next week, Yves will be in Hong Kong for 3 different conferences and probably a dozen different events. But Yves will be speaking at Hong Kong Web3 Spring Summit on April 5th. He'll be on a panel it's called Scaling Web 3.0, the Race of L2. On April 7th, the main conference that's kind of like the thing driving their blockchain week is the Web3 Festival. Yves will be on the panel for DPIN and RWA, talking about RAM, which is a DPIN, decentralized physical infrastructure. And it is a real-world asset. It's RAM on the EOS nodes, essentially, on a decentralized network. And most important...
some updates, I will be giving updates as well on a carbon footprint project that's been ongoing in Hong Kong. So stay tuned for that as well, for those who can attend the conference.
Ooh, alpha. Yeah, so that one's been a long time coming. Let me just name drop the last one because the last one's April 8th on my birthday. You will be at the BTC L2 conference, which is obviously what the title says. And you will be giving a demo on XSAT. For first,
yeah, I'm not sure demo is the right word because demo means something in English. We'll be talking about it. They call it, it's basically a 5-minute speech. They call it a demo, but no, it is not a demo. So we are not demoing anything. That means something different in English.
Got it. You want to? So before we get into the XSAT stuff and more RAM talk, you kind of name dropped a little bit of alpha on the Green Project. You want to kind of share anything else? Because not everyone's going to be in Hong Kong.
No, but stuff will come out of after that. It's basically it's a project that we've been working on with for a while. This started off while we still had the grant framework up. It got transitioned over to labs. Basically the how this was going to proceed changed. This is in link with the Cyberport initiative that we have as well, or I guess the program that we're in Hong Kong. We are working with basically the government. We're working with a technical partner, as well as one of the large development companies in Hong Kong called New World Development / the K11 portion. So I've just I just gave a bunch of acronyms. Just Google those things; they'll give you a little idea. I'll leave it at that.
That's what I was getting to. It's a large multinational corporation involved with this. If you just Google those names that Yves just dropped, you'll know what I'm talking about there. All right, so we got some alpha, I guess, something that we haven't shared publicly yet that got finalized a week or two ago, and it has to do with a little bit to do with the new transfer RAM action, because that's what the request was for the grant. There's been a lot of discussion about Token Pocket and iOS development for EOS.
Yeah,
So,
just like, what are you getting at? I just wasn't sure. Okay, now I
that's
see what
right.
you're
Yeah, I
getting
guess
at.
I buried the lead, Yves. I buried the lead. So Token Pocket will
Yes.
be coming back to iOS, not immediately, but it is on their
It will take
roadmap.
some time. It is on the roadmap, and we just leveraged the RAM transfer function for the first time within the admin.grants account, which is currently the largest holder of RAM, a little over 16 gigs. You will have noticed, or you can go and check, roughly an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour ago, I transferred 53 megabytes, give or take 56, 560,000 something bytes, over to an account called tp.recover, and that is essentially like a down payment on that work. As now we are slated in the roadmap to be able to close that gap. As we had mentioned before, part of the big issue with Token Pocket is simply that they have a ridiculous amounts of users. I think they're at over 1 million DAU, and the amount of users that are on EOS are quite minimal compared to that. And so being able to be slated on work was not an issue of cost, it was an issue of time for them. They have quite an extensive user base, and so we were able to get slotted in. Obviously, those that have been using Token Pocket have found workarounds. Android still works. You can also use a previous version of, there are a bunch of other things that you could do, but to simplify the process so that it's on the latest version of Token Pocket on iOS, which is a very, it's a subset of individuals, that is now going to be slated to be done. The current target is between 4 to 6 months, so it is lengthy. It will not be done anytime soon, but we are trying to, or the way that we I guess created this incentive is that the earlier they do it, the more incentives they have. And so ideally they're able to do it faster, but again, it's not an issue of money on their end, it's an issue of time. There's a lot of work that precedes this, but at least now it's slated.
Yeah, so the cool thing with that is the RAM, now that it's transferable from one account to the other on the base layer, it can be used for payments and maybe even on the next live stream. So typically, if you do contests, giveaways, bounties, EOS is typically the token of choice to use for that giveaway. This is the EOS Network. But in the future, we will probably be mixing in some RAM transfers for community engagement activities, bounties, things like that. So stay tuned for that. Other breaking news on RAM. I guess I knew this was happening, but I didn't know that it got updated. DeFi Llama pushed an update today. So a couple of months ago, DeFi Llama added the protocol owned liquidity for the RAM Bancor pool as part of their TVL, but it was tracking TVL for that particular function, but it wasn't including it in the totality of the TVL for the EOS network. So Denis was kind of poking and prodding them, asking them to include it as part of the total chain liquidity. And that just got approved in the last day or so, and it got shared today. So that's an extra $23 million of TVL added to the dashboard for the EOS network. So I think that puts TVL somewhere over $100 some million. I'm not sure exactly where it is today, depending on price, but that's a big win because that is 100% real usable liquidity. And one of the other nuances to that $23 million is that it's actually twice that, because when there's EOS on one side, $23 million of EOS on one side, but then there's RAM on the other side. The RAM on the other side, it's actually worth more than that because of how Bancor would work if you actually bought it. But because RAM is not a token, DeFi Llama just doesn't have a way to track the RAM side of the RAM pool as TVL. So they're only counting the EOS side. And that, I guess, can kind of be my segue into WRAM. So that's wrapped RAM, which
Or
was
just
already
pronounce it
covered.
RAM. It's the same thing.
RAM with the silent
RAM.
W.
Yeah.
Nathan already mentioned it a little bit. Essentially, just tokenized RAM. So you right now, if you hold RAM as native RAM, you could see it in your resources balance on a block explorer, but you don't see it in your token balances in a wallet, for example. You can't trade it on DeFi box. You can't send it to a centralized exchange. So that's the main function of WRAM, is you have native system RAM that you could use for its utility. There will be, most likely on the RAM utils Netlify app, there'll be a way to just basically wrap your RAM. So you send system contract RAM, or not system contract RAM, system RAM, and then you get back a WRAM token for wrapped RAM. For me, one of the main benefits to this is for communicating externally, like what RAM is, the market cap of RAM. A lot of people don't even think of a market cap when they talk about RAM, because there's no real easy way to look at it. Like even with DeFi Lum, it's just tracking the TVL. So just to get an idea of if RAM had a market cap, currently, last I checked, it's 0.272 EOS per kilobyte of RAM, and there's 409 kilobytes of RAM on the EOS network. So it's actually $111 million market cap. So that's that. There's a lot of questions of like, what's the difference between BRAM? What was that?
I'm doing this because it doesn't work that way. It's not as simple as that, because it's the Bancor algorithm that underlies this, right? So that would be the case if you were able to sell at that particular rate, all of it, but it doesn't work that way. And this is, there's the understanding of the Bancor algorithm, I think, is not really well understood. Even when we have discussions at the BP level and such. And so, yes, theoretically it's near there, but that's not how it works. So every single byte that you sell or that you buy changes the value, right? So it's not, you can't just buy 100% of it at this particular rate. Every time you buy, it'll keep going up. So it's a predefined curve. So although it's a free market on RAM, in a way it's not a free market because it's a predefined price curve. And so you can't operate outside of that price curve, and that applies downward as well. So even though you said, currently at the current amount of RAM and the price rate at RAM, that gives you a number, but that's not really the case. I'm just being pedantic.
You can though. You're talking about the old RAM, the new RAM. Now it's transferable.
No, but that's also not true. No, because Okay, so if you can go buy on the protocol for a certain rate, but now I'm overcharging you by 20%, but a wrap version, why the hell would you go buy my wrap version? So no, there's always going to be a small arbitrage opportunities, but there's not going to be a speculative market on one and not on the other. The speculation around RAM in terms of its price is somewhat limited. There are advantages and disadvantages of that. So it protects the downside, and this is why we've seen that it's been quite good to be able to pick up that market, but it also protects the upside. The only time I believe there's going to potentially be speculation around RAM is when we get really, really close to hitting that upper limit of RAM buy. Now, the problem though is that even some people are saying, oh, it'd be great if somebody could buy all the RAM. That's also not theoretically possible. I think it's actually impossible to be able to buy all of the RAM, because that last kilobyte of RAM is going to cost I forget the number, but let's say it's 500 million EOS. And there's not enough EOS in existence to be able to buy that. So you actually hit the upper ends, because again, Bancor is really an AMM. And so it is a free market, but you're acting on this predefined price curve.
But think of like limit orders, Yves. So I need 2 gigs of RAM for my app, or just want to hold it, and I don't have any RAM. You've got gigs and gigs of RAM. We could actually, just with RAM transferable, not even counting the tokenized RAM, we could work an OTC deal now that it's transferable, because I don't want to push the price too far up. You don't want to push the price too far
down.
You're
talking about OTC. You're not talking about just WRAM or BRAM available on a DEX.
Well, think of WRAM, like BRAM's already on Big One exchange. So basically WRAM is very similar to that. It could be listed on a centralized exchange. If that were the case, you just set limit orders. I'm willing to sell my RAM, but only at this price. You can't currently do that with the.
Correct. Oh, I'm not saying that that's not adding extra functionality. I'm just saying people should understand that this RAM in general can only operate within a predefined price curves, plus or minus a little bit at any given time. And there are advantages and disadvantages to that. And also, in terms of RAM liquidity, there's some people that didn't understand. They're looking at it and they're looking at, oh, there's only 21 million EOS in there. Therefore, there's only 21 million EOS worth of liquidity. Yes, but no. RAM is always fully liquid because of Bancor. So you can always get your funds in, or I guess not in, but you can always get your funds out because that price curve will adjust as you sell down. And it's not, if you try to sell at a current rate, you're not getting that rate. You're getting that rate for this kilobyte. You're getting a slightly lower rate for the next kilobyte, and so on and so forth. So it is not as simple as that, but with at least now with WRAM and being able to tokenize RAM, it will simplify general understanding of people. So there's still a lot of advantages of this. So I'll give a concrete example. We're talking to large investors that do want to purchase RAM. Can't point them to CMC, can't point them anywhere because RAM is not a token yet. And so even internally, when they want to be able to advise or recommend whether or not they should enter this market, it's very difficult to understand when you've got nothing that people commonly understand. And so right now with WRAM and with this tokenizing this, it'll make it much easier for people to understand, to point to in terms of what it is. So there are huge advantages with this.
That's the biggest advantage. Is it's just different. Like, to explain it, that it's not a token with the system resource.
It's a real world asset, literally. And so that's the other thing is people are like, oh, we could make a certain amount or whatever. No, this is actual RAM. This is a real RAM that people need to have in their machines or anybody basically that's running in those on EOS for the consumed portion of RAM. And so it's a real world asset. It's also decentralized, so it's also deep in a way because everybody needs to have this. And it is decentralized in terms of its the actual asset itself. So it's a combination of RWA, it's a combination of DeepIn. It also has some DeFi properties. This is what's really interesting with RAM is it's an underlying, arguably only real world asset that is quite tangible that actually powers the network, and that's really exciting.
And it's going to be there's going to be a lot of RAM required for XSAT. So do you want to get into any of that functionality?
No, I don't want to get into any of that because people will have to wait just like everybody else. Yes, Labs that is leading a large part of this had made it very clear that RAM is quite key or central to XSAT, and I'll leave it at that.
Yep.
And they've dropped enough hints here and there that people can start figuring things out. But in terms of making official announcements and official messaging around that, as you mentioned earlier in the segment, things will be coming out in the next week or so. One thing to correct is I'm not certain that the white paper itself will come out in the next week, and there are reasons for that. We've significantly changed how we were originally approaching this as we're doing more research. We are also cautious in what we release, at what time we release it. That would become more apparent at some point. There's a lot of competition in this space, and the approach to the layer 2 space from ETSAT is quite unique. Nobody else is doing something like this, and so also being quite cautious in what we're releasing right now.
Yeah, so I guess that's, you kind of mentioned it, but like we teased some of the white paper out and screenshots and talked about it. There's been a lot of changes over the last month. And that's the reason why
it's all hands on deck. Labs is all on this. I mean, I've got multiple meetings per week on this. We've got engineers on this. There's a lot of business use cases that have improved from the very beginning. The target audience as well has somewhat shifted over time, and how different stakeholders will participate within XSAT. Looking as well at our strengths and gaps that we know, weaknesses that we know within the network. So who we're focusing on, what we're focusing on. A lot of work has gone into coming up with in preparation for Hong Kong and Dubai, essentially, to be able to release some snippets of what this is. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Because otherwise, I know myself. I'm just going to say more, and I'll keep. So no, it's not. I'm stopping.
I'll say one thing, and I guess the target end users think like the end users, other L2s and protocols, rather than me sending sats to Eve. So I'll leave it at that. As far as target demographic, which I think is quite interesting, and it's also a reason why presenting the demo, the sneak peek at the BTCL2 conference will be interesting, because they'll all be there, and it could benefit some of them.
Oh yeah, the few conferences that we are attending outside of general Web3 are focused on Bitcoin. So there's Blockchain Life in Dubai, and then there's the Bitcoin Layer 2 conference, East and West in Hong Kong, alongside other side events, of course. But those are the larger ones that people can point to.
Just while on the topic of, you just mentioned Dubai. So I only mentioned Hong Kong because it's like next week and the following week. So then you come home for a couple of days, basically.
I come home,
kiss your wife, and then leave again.
To basically wash some clothes, and then I head out the next day, and then I'm heading in a different direction, and I'll be in Dubai for Token 2049, Blockchain Life, and a few other events, and I'll be there short of a week, basically. But yeah, there's only one day in between with a lot of that travel, and so I'll be gone for the majority of the month of April, as of next week.
All right, I'm just going through my list of things that I wanted to bring up. RAMs. So we haven't really been talking about RAMs. It's not really our initiative, but I believe I read in the Elites chat that there's plans to, I guess, make it burnable, or to release the RAM in April. Is that kind of what the speculation is currently?
I'm going to let Labs guide that, because it's not ours. I believe what was mentioned was that at a very least, the RAMs will be re-released back to people, and so at the very minimal, people will be able to get their RAM back and do something with it. I also believe that there's going to be other things that potentially will come out of this. I'll let them drop that that alpha on how that has links to XAT and choices that people perhaps will need to make. Anyways, I'll let Labs do that, because that's their initiative.
That's their thing. But just there's been talk of something coming in the next. I don't even want to put a timeline on it, but let's just say like the next month or two.
Well, so I mean, everything pointing to the Bitcoin halving, right? So Bitcoin halving is on or around April 15th right now, is give or take the date. And so there's a reason why everything is waiting and everything is on or around that time. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, did you see how the halving got bumped up by like a week because of the hash rate? Just keeps
more hash rate, yeah.
Climbing.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, April 15th, I think, is the last date I saw. But it's the same thing every time, right? Everybody's speculating when the date will be and what the market will do. And it typically becomes very uneventful. Nothing happens. It just continues as it was. Yeah. That is, if you've been around, this is the fourth time. This is very little.
Well, the one thing
that'll anticlimactic.
Well, if you're not a Bitcoin miner, if you're a Bitcoin miner, there's a lot of Bitcoin miners that are going to be turning off their machines.
I'm talking about just general audience. People are expecting that something happens, and it's literally nothing. It just occurred, because it's programmatic, right? It's just nothing happens. Nothing actually happens. What happens, though, you're right, in terms of economic impact to the miners, a lot of them are forced to shut down, and it does then eventually centralize into the few, as do most economic systems, yes. Because now your cost effectively doubles, right? To obtain the same amount of treasure, and this is what drives essentially programmatically the cost of Bitcoin up, because in order for that to still be viable, then the price of Bitcoin needs to increase. Caveat on this, though, is that we do see that over time the volatility is reduced as there's more capital in the system. Obviously, it's much harder to move the system. We've seen now with a lot of ETFs coming in, we're starting to see that where to move the needle will take more and more. And it's going to become harder and harder. The system does get ingrained further and further, which then adds to the security of the network. That's kind of the whole premise, right? So it is quite interesting in terms of how the markets will behave this time around. Every time we say the same thing, and every time we everybody gets it wrong. This time around, with the ETFs and the amount of capital that's pouring in through those doors, it is with time kind of shortening or making smaller the potential volatility.
Well, I mean, this cycle is already different than every previous halvening cycle. We've never hit a new Bitcoin all-time high before a halvening. It's always happened, like, it's always been delayed a little bit.
Yep.
So who knows what'll happen? But the inflows this week. So last week, as far as like the ETFs, last week was the first week after
a little bit.
Yeah,
but
the
that was
outflow
because of the regulatory decisions impeding, and then it just skyrocketed again.
Yeah, so yesterday and the day before, the inflows were back up. So we'll see what happens. But I've been watching those closely.
Yeah.
That was it actually for the topics. It's a really short one. I think we'll have a bigger update maybe next time. So last show we did, we were kind of recapping the BP call. There were a lot of RAM initiatives, discussions around like block produce instead of getting paid in like EOS and RAM. So those discussions, as far as I'm aware, they're still ongoing. It's not like a hard no, but there's a handful of people rallying at this point.
Still a handful of people. Actually, there's some code being developed, I believe right now already on Jungle. There's a parameter that's been deployed. Might be wrong on this, but either it's a combination of between GenerEOS and EOS Nation working on this. It might be wrong, so apologies if there's other people or if either of those two are not as part of that initiative. But in terms of being able to add the functionality so that the fees that currently are going to 100% to one bucket could be tweaked so that it could be split between different buckets. If I'm not mistaken, that's already deployed on Jungle. If not, it's imminent to be deployed on Jungle. And so that would add the functionality of RAM fees being able to be directed elsewhere than simply in Rex. I also believe that's not unique to that. It might just be for any kind of system fees being able to be directed. I might be wrong on that. But yeah, there's initiative there. There are a few BPs that have mentioned that they will simply start buying RAM regardless of whether or not the network forces them to do so, because that was what was being discussed, was whether or not people could get paid in RAM. There's some people that are already purchasing RAM with their rewards. We had mentioned, so throughout those discussions, we mentioned that regardless of whatever was happening on chain, the ENF was also doing so for a while. So we made 1 million EOS purchases of RAM. We're holding roughly 16 point something gigs of RAM. And as we mentioned earlier in the show, we're also now offering the possibility of some contractors or partners that we work with to now get transferred some RAM as payment. And we've got some of our internal contractors that have agreed to this as well. And so we're able to leverage this asset now as an asset, not just as the underlying actual hardware piece. So it's quite interesting, and we'll see how that evolves over time. But right now it's quite one-on-one. There's nothing at the system level per se, and there doesn't seem to be any consensus of moving that at the system level at this point. There are very vocal people in favor, against, some people simply abstaining at this point, kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. All that to say, RAM is definitely a huge topic in those BP channels.
That was, I guess, the main point I wanted to make is that it's not a dead issue. It's not a guarantee, but it is still kind of, I don't want to call it a moving target, but it's still ongoing. So there's still some potential for that to get implemented, which if it is kind of but altering the tokenomics a little bit, which was a really big topic on the last live stream because of some tweets you made. So I guess on the topic of tokenomics, I don't think that there will be any major changes before the hard fork, but they are ongoing discussions, research, and things like that. Is there anything more to add as far as expectations and being realistic about it?
I was typing. I apologize, and so I missed that first part of what you're talking about.
Oh,
I heard RAM, but then I'm thinking you're probably referring to the tokenomics, general tokenomics.
Well, the RAM stuff we were just talking about would alter the tokenomics in a way because it's messing with the fee distributions. But the tokenomics that you were sharing in your tweets a month ago were more or less about the total supply.
Correct.
And then so I guess there are two different ideas that were shared.
Multiple ideas, but sure.
Well, the two main ones I would say is turning off inflation, setting a fixed supply with different buckets for different functions. That was one concept. And then one of them was basically swapping EOS for some new token for some potential new chain. And that could be a new way to do a tokenomic chain. That one would be much more extreme. I think the first one would be quicker to implement, but those are two of the bigger ideas I've seen being discussed. But is there anything to add since then, other than that it's just kind of a work in progress and keep your expectations?
It's a work in progress. So this is a tricky one, right? So people ask like, why aren't things moving or whatever? While at the same time saying EOS is centralized. Well, if it was centralized, actually things would move. This is part of it. Is you've got 21 different entities. If you add the ENF in there as a voice or as somewhat of a moderator or coordinator of this, then you've got 22 completely separate entities talking about very heavy subjects, and so people have different opinions on what they would like or what they don't like or what their concerns are, et cetera, et cetera. So these things just generally take time because it is decentralized. There's no one voice that says you must obey this and then people have to follow. It doesn't work that way. And when we're talking about tokenomics in particular, these are significant impacts. These block producers are the stewards of the network, and so any change that they make, that they support, any kind of economic policy changes will have very real impact on the token. And so these things are taken very, very, very seriously. In terms of this general idea that I mentioned of minting, stopping inflation, minting the tokens to cap the supply, let's say 2 billion instead of the current theoretical maximum of 10 billion, and then creating buckets around that. So we did introduce that. We gave the debrief in the blog post, and so I won't reiterate everything that was said there. But the general idea is this is a massive change, and we took into account what people have said and kind of just giving it a little bit of time too, because since then other VPs have reflected on it. They've now shared positions. Some have changed positions. Some were in favor and were saying, no, this makes no sense, blah, 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 for whatever reason. And now they're like, wait a minute. Okay. And then, so it's still in flux. What I believe in a kind of not making a prediction here, but what I believe is more likelier to happen in the way that it would happen is that the technical changes for this to occur would be deployed prior to the full-fledged plan being defined, but with a period of time where that longer-term plan is given a chance to be defined. And so you may have the benefits of moving very quickly on the tokenomics side without necessarily knowing how you're going to distribute those buckets, how that's going to be governed completely, but those tokens are locked. So you get the benefits of those tokens are now in existence. You now get the benefits of now the chain no longer has inflation, and that's very real and that's direct, that's instant. But you also don't have that time pressure of coming up with, okay, now what are you going to do very, very much long term in the instant. And so you're not delaying this by potentially 6 months, 8 months until we figure out everything, and then by then it's not that it's too late, but you've kind of missed a window of opportunity. You do this before, you give it a grace period where the machinery of the network still can continue to exist and function with very real impeding deadlines that if plans are not made by then, funding runs dry because certain buckets are funded for a certain period of time. I think that's more likely and more realistic to gain widespread support based on what we heard, but we've not introduced that topic yet, so this is the first time I'm mentioning it here right now, and you may even be listening to this and have no idea what I just said. That's fine. Part of this is at some point we're going to need to code this, so we actually need to put something on chain as a proposal. I've said multiple times, to me, even when people make a proposal and they give you a verbal agreement, to me, it's on blockchain, it's not real until it's on MSIG and then people signed. That's the only time it becomes real. Prior to that, it's just not real. And so until we actually have something coded, until we can present it, until people are forced to make a decision or abstain from making a decision, it is not real. We are not necessarily close to having that happen. We're giving it some time. I believe that time that we're giving is actually crucial because it puts the pressure on the people to come up with something until at some point they, time is run by, people now just get frustrated and they just want something to make a choice on, and then we can actually move forward with some stuff, barring that obviously whatever is being proposed and worked on makes sense. Everything I've just said might be very convoluted. You might not get it. If you actually follow along to what I just said, then you understand what I'm talking about.
And what I guess I'll add one more thing when you're talking about codifying it. Right now, it's all hands on deck for the consensus upgrade. So any diversion, so the people that would need to be involved in any tokenomics or consensus upgrades, like they're very few, and they are head deep. Kind
of.
Wow,
like if we're only talking about increasing token supply, I mean, this is the thing too, is we just went through that with the system contracts. There are things that are official releases by the ENF. There's audits behind that code, etc. There are other things. There are parameters on chain. Parameters on chain could be, anybody could make that proposal as long as you get the 15 out of 21. There's no code behind it in the sense of you needed to write something, audit it. Right now, there are tweaks, right? There are parameters that you can change. I'll give an example. Inline actions. When the network first started, inline actions, I believe, was set at 4. The ENF, or at the time, whoever's developing the code and protocol developers, don't need to get involved in the let's change the setting of 4 and make it equal to 6. And I think it changed to 6, then 8, then 16, I believe. There are some things that the BPs can do single-handedly. The increasing the releasing tokens and just having them minted and turning off inflation, technically somebody could do this tomorrow. The harder part is to obviously reach consensus on that and then what happens next, but there's no real workload on engineers to be able to do this, and if we're really looking at this from a high level point of view.
There would be. So if you turn off, so right now BPs are paid through inflation. There's a mechanism that feeds them their 1%. If you turn off that inflation, now you have this bucket that's, let's say, 10 to 15, whatever percent of the supply, 20% of the supply. This is BP rewards that have to last forever. So you need
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about you just stop inflation, you mint tokens, and now there's no more inflation, so BPs don't get paid anymore. You can do that in 5 seconds. You don't need a lot of thought process. The point here is you don't need engineers to be able to do very much for this. It is a setting that you could tweak. The hard part is not the engineering. The hard part is the determining the policy, to determine the settings, to be able to reach consensus on that. That's the hard part. You were mentioning that engineers are focused on instant finality and such, and a lot of people are focused. These are different skill sets. These are different people. We're now talking about economic policies, which we could be asked to enact or to codify should they require code. But the decision-making process and to determine what is the parameter that we want, that is the work. It's not necessarily the putting up the MSIG and just writing numbers, and sure, there is work involved in there. We're not talking about months of work involved for that particular portion. Fairly certain somebody who's quite knowledgeable of this, we could do this within a few hours, a few days type of thing. But that's not realistic because, but what happens next? That's what's really difficult is how does this work? What are the logistics of this? There are BPs getting paid right now. How do they just simply stop getting paid? That is an option. Is that realistic? Probably not really realistic. And so there are other considerations there, but the technical components per se are relatively the easiest part of this, so to speak.
Do you envision in the year 2024, EOS, and this, I know that you don't make this decision, and the BPs would need to go along with it. I'll agree.
We even have keys, so no.
Do you believe in 2024 there will be a tokenomic change on the EOS mainnet?
I hope so. I do believe, and I've made this I've made this known. I've been very public about this. I believe that the Band-Aid approach that we've been taking for a while is not sufficient. I believe that there's enough data out there to showcase that the market would not only respond very favorably to this, but that there are other, it would likely create a chain of positivity that would be quite catalytic in our success. So I'm very much in favor of this. I believe that with the snippets of indicators that we've gotten around this, and when we look at competitors and when we look at the market in general, the market does tend to prefer, for example, no inflation and a set number of tokens that release over time. Even though the effective inflation is higher than our current inflation, the market prefers one or the other over the other, even though it actually makes no sense from a mathematic point of view. It doesn't matter. The market doesn't need to be rational for that. There are preferences around narratives. There are preferences around how, what it means and such. And I believe it is ripe for us. The other thing there is that EOS has a superpower that's somewhat of a double-edged sword. EOS is incredibly liquid. We have a very, very deep liquidity depth. On, I believe it is CoinMarketCap now, there's a new tab. Do you recall the name of that tab? It's
volume divided by market cap.
No, but what's there's a button you must press. I just forget the name of the button.
Let me pull it up.
Customize. You need to push the customize button. In customize, you can go and add the daily volume to market cap ratio. When you check this though, you need to remove something else because CoinMarketCap, I think, only lets you show 7 columns or whatever it is. So you need to remove one in order to display that one. EOS is constantly in the top 15, top 20. So in terms of that key metric that really represents liquidity depth to market cap, or basically the liquidity depth that you have in your token, EOS outperforms it's outperforming its current market cap. It's not even close. And so EOS does have the advantage of being extremely liquid. The disadvantage of that though is it's very difficult to move a project unless there's massive coordination, because it's so widespread, because it is so decentralized. EOS lives on something like 190 different exchanges that we know of. EOS is extremely liquid, so it's a superpower on one hand. It's also very difficult on the other hand. Why I'm saying this is that even if the EOS token supply were to increase significantly, take it to 2 billion, some people have suggested 2.1 billion symbolically for being in line with 21 million type of thing. You would still likely, just based on very raw data that I did, napkin math type of thing, you'd still be punching well above your weight. There's tremendous amounts of room to grow. This would not impact the liquidity in the grand scheme of things, but the positivity that would come around that. So some people, I think it was, I don't know if it was somebody in the community that showcased, I think it was Arbitrum, just doubled their token supply instantly on CoinMarketCap. You're now doubling in market cap. Nothing's changed. That obviously can be very dangerous or very difficult if you don't have liquidity. You're not, just because you're doubling your market cap, just because you're adding tokens, you're not adding more liquidity. In our case, liquidity is not an issue. We trade roughly over $100 million per day worth of 24-hour volume on a market cap that varies between, currently, let's say 900 million to 1.1 billion, give or take. The percentage, that ratio is extremely high, and that's what current CoinMarketCap now enables you to see. We have plenty of legroom on that space. It is a superpower that I believe we could leverage. I believe the block producers should reach consensus on this. That would be my hope. I would like to see that happen. I think this would solve a lot of the issues that we've had in the past. We've got another concrete example. We've been working with exchanges, and there's a particular exchange that would love to be able to offer staking programs. In order to be able to do so, you need tokens. Sometimes you need tokens not for their valuation. You need them for the amount of tokens and the percentage that it represents in terms of active token supply. To give an example with market makers, when we engaged with market makers early on, all of them wanted, they weren't looking at how many tokens or what is the value of the token. They're like, we want X%. And we need X%. Well, in our case, the active token supply is the token supply. And so, all right, if you want 5%, that's 50 million tokens. We do not have access to that. That's not a thing. For other chains, they have access to that. The foundations started with that. This kind of thing would now be possible. And there's more and more of that, where sometimes you don't need the tokens, liquidity provision for projects. You don't need the tokens for their fiat valuation. You need them for the amount of tokens that they represent. And we've never had that luxury. And so when the ENF, for example, has wanted to engage with partners in that line, we've had to save up, basically, of not spending tokens in order for 9 months to be able to save enough to be able to do a one thing, versus if we just had a bucket and we reach consensus on let's utilize this amount of tokens, and they're not being sold, they're used for their function, for their actual utility. We just don't have that functionality. Now we'd have that functionality. So there are tons of things like this, and I could go on as to why I believe this is needed, why I believe this is a good idea. I also do not believe that we need to spend 6 months on this and hire people and come up with a whatever it is, like Tokenomics Plus or whatever. There's no magic guidebook around this. We're currently competing with tokens that are called dog with a fucking hat, that are moving the markets. Okay, the market has made it very clear narratives are still extremely powerful over fundamentals. What's I think the saving grace in EOS's part is that we have tremendous, really good fundamentals. So if the tokenomics change and there is an influx of new users and there's kind of somewhat FOMO and hype around the new tokenomics, it doesn't remove the fundamentals we have. In other competitors' case, they have nothing, that's all they have. So when that disappears, they're back with zero. In our case, that's what's missing. We don't have any of that. And it's been missing for quite some time, and we've tried to, within the best of our ability, with what we had and within our sphere of control, try to engage on those triggers, and we've been unable to. And I believe that with this this tokenomic tokenomic proposal, it would open up a lot of doors that we've been missing, that we know that we'd be able to act upon, and or that we are currently not being able to act upon. So I'm very much in favor of this. I do hope to see this happen in 2024. I hope to see this happen within the next few months. I believe that if there's a window here that's going to inevitably close. I believe if the block producers can reach consensus, even though we might not have all of the details in place at the time that this proposal is executed upon, and I like I mentioned earlier, I think that there's a leeway there of how we can enact this to ensure accountability, ensure that the current machinery keeps functioning, but with a timeline and a deadline. Anyways, we've got precedents around how we can do this. I believe if we can do that in the month of maybe June, at maximum maybe July, this could be tremendous for the network, and so I wholeheartedly support this. Anyways, that's my rant. That's my banter for today.
That was a good rant. I think I don't have any more topics. I don't see any questions really in the live chat. This might be the quickest we've ever done this. Is there anything else you wanted to cover?
No. Yeah, just get your shit together. Is what I'm gonna end on with. Like we have an opportunity to take bold action within a very particular timing, very particular market, with huge changes coming on our front, with instant finality, with XSAT, the other things that we've not even mentioned. This is the time, guys. Get your shit together.
All right, I think Steph, you coming back on stage to? Yeah,
that's great. Throwing it back to the classic end rants, which you guys started way back at the start of the EOS Network Foundation.
Yeah, it was like 3 years ago.
And now we're ending the show with a Yves rant. Makes sense to me. Great conversation, guys. Lots of exciting information. Lots of exciting non-information with XSAT. I don't know what that was about. Yves pulled the classic move. Hey guys, I can't talk about this. Proceeds to not talk about it for 3 minutes somehow. Yeah, I don't know. But that's a classic.
I sound terrible at this. Yes, you need to cut me off.
No, but that was a great Big Beard Banter, guys. Thanks a lot for that, and we'll do it again in a month.
All right.
See you guys. I'll wrap this up for everyone. Actually, before we go, check this out. The bounty I talked about earlier on the show was completed. Yevgeny, congratulations. Getting that 10 USDT for promoting the show. And here's the tweet and proof of work for promoting this show on his Like EOS Ru account. Thanks, Yevgeny. Love to see an OG community member come in there, grab that bounty. So if you want more EOS content, there's plenty more coming your way. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, we've got an X space that's going on the EOS Network Foundation account with Pomelo Bounties. We'll be handing out more promotional bounties just like today, bigger ones for the replay, all sorts of things. So make sure you join in tomorrow, get some USDT Pomelo Bounties in your account. On top of that, every Wednesday, 8 p.m. UTC, join the Telegram group EOS Global and take part in the weekly EOS Lounge. So that's where anyone can just jump in, share their thoughts, comments, ask questions, etc. And that goes on every week on Wednesdays. So follow the ENF on Twitter. Like this video if you like what you saw. Thank you for everyone who made the show possible. Yves, Zach, Liam on the production tables, Brandon also, as well as on the Fireside with Bart, Nathan James coming in clutch with great developer information, as always. So that's going to wrap it up for this month. I'm excited to do it again next month. But before we go, make sure you leave a like and actually leave a comment. Let me know which of these style pieces you like. The new hat, the new goatee, or the new shirt. That's it for us. Bye-bye.